Hey everybody, welcome to the Blendr Report, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Jonathan Harvey. This is your co-host, Liam DeBoer. Liam, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about how Canada's temporary foreign worker program has become a permanent crisis, Canada's stolen cars, fentanyl, and the terror economy, as well as feds identifying nearly 500 ways to cut red tape, all of which they created. All right, let's get started. So, first off, we've got how Canada's temporary foreign worker program became a permanent crisis. Canada's Temporary Foreign Worker Program, or TFWP, created in 1973 to fill short-term gaps in agriculture and healthcare, has ballooned into a lightning rod issue. What began as a niche program now covers everything from fast food counters to construction sites, with nearly 845,000 temporary residents by 2021, double the number a decade earlier. Critics say it displaces Canadian workers, drives down wages, and worsens housing shortages. Prime Minister Mark Carney has pledged to cap temporary residents at under 5% of the population by 2027, but targets are already being overshot. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre vows to scrap the program, while BC Premier David Eby demands a major overhaul, citing fraud and exploitation. The UN has even likened it to modern slavery. Supporters, however, insist many businesses, especially in rural Canada, would collapse without it. The debate now boils down to priorities: protect domestic jobs or lean on foreign labor to sustain the economy. So, are small businesses genuinely dependent on foreign workers, or is this about cheap labor?
This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation now. I think they've gotten in so deep that the economy and these small businesses depend on them because they can't survive here otherwise. You're paying too much in taxes. Everything costs too much. You can't adjust pricing fast enough in many retail businesses to keep up with the incoming costs and changes. They continue to raise minimum wage. And not a lot of, I'm not against a lot of that. However, when you do all that to a small business, and then you also implement this temporary foreign worker program, the temporary foreign workers at a lower wage and driving wages down, they sort of become part of that equation. And so when you look at your business from a profit perspective, there's all these little things that can work. Some are complex, some are not. But it's kind of these ingredients, and then the icing on top is what you get to make. They've built a system that is dependent now on temporary foreign workers. So if you take them out and replace them with people that need to get paid more money, well, what happens to the icing on the cake? It's gone. So then what happens to the business? It's gone. So then what happens to all the jobs? They're gone. And the thing is, the economy is not strong enough to support rebuilding without using these people right now because of what the government's already done. So again, rock in a hard place. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So they've put themselves in quite a spot here by letting it get to this size, right? Because if it were, 85,000 people instead of 850,000, you could kind of rip that Band-Aid off and you'd feel it. You could make some adjustments. You might be able to subsidize it a little bit. But with nearly 1 million, I think it's over that now. And again, still coming in at a rapid rate, it signals to me they have no interest in slowing this down. This is a PR campaign that's kind of gone awry. They're going to try to basically find some balance here and stick with it. Otherwise, I think we're going to have another large economic crisis on our hands.
Well, I don't know, because I don't even see this being a thing in many small businesses. To me, it seems a occurrence, or the main culprits taking advantage of this system are the big corporations. Like, even the number one is Tim Hortons in Canada.
Right. So one thing you have to consider, though, when it comes to big corporations is that those are actually owned by, you own little small pockets.
Franchises,
yeah. So like someone will own a pocket where they have 2 Tim Hortons or 4 Tim Hortons, and they've paid a ton of franchise fees. So you're correct that it's big business, but it's actually like a small owner or a small group of owners that are operating it.
But I still fail to see how, say, hiring a Canadian high schooler or whatever to work at Tim Hortons is less, or is a bigger hit to their wallet than,
because
say, a temporary foreign worker.
A lot of the wages are subsidized by the government, which aren't subsidized when it's a kid who's 17.
Right. So it's not market forces, though, that are causing that then. It's the incentive that is being laid out by the government.
It isn't. You're right, and at the same time, it can be wrong, because if in that cake, that icing, part of the equation of how much money I make is getting a rebate from the government for the workers that I have, then no, because then if I have to pay full price for the staff member, now all of a sudden my margins go down, now there's nothing left. So yes and no. It just depends how big a part of that equation it has become.
Yeah, but even like say on the back end, we're talking about, okay, you're a business owner, you pay high taxes. You're definitely not going to have any argument from me on that, especially as I wear this sweater here, death by taxes. But then also, okay, but then we're saying they subsidize these workers. Well, part of the reason that we're so high in taxes here is because the government is involved in every nook and cranny of our economy to
Agreed.
the point where they're even subsidizing temporary foreign workers.
Agreed.
So it's like, to me, that is the relief of the pain that they've already caused.
Yes.
So it's like,
I agree with you. The problem is, unless they directly take that money from subsidies and just give it back to companies for hiring regular people, it's the same situation again. So I agree, but the issue you have is the adjustment. You have these big changes in the economy when you make adjustments and change policy. So if they just dunk all these people, like, Pierre Poilievre says, I'm going to scrap the program. You can't just pull the program. It would be well, you can do whatever the hell you want if you're in charge, I guess. But the cascading effect and the carnage and the number of small businesses that would close, it'd be a very turbulent time. Yes, it would balance out over time, but do you want to be responsible for 3 to 4 years of several industries completely falling apart in the country? Because that's likely what would happen. Because that period where you have to make that adjustment is where everything starts to fail.
well, to me, yeah, for sure. I mean, we're in a scenario where there's no, because I do think this is in all around the Western world. We're finding ourselves in these scenarios from many different fronts where you can be in a scenario where you have no good decision to make, where you
100%.
have, where it's just like, I have varying degrees of negative.
Yeah, I would say sometimes you have to choose between two bad options.
But then we even look at, okay, when it comes to this temporary foreign worker program, yes, sure, business profits and the ability to actually function and keep a decent bottom line is important, 100%.
Yeah.
But then you look at all the cascading effects as well of this foreign worker problem when there was even just numbers put out the other day as to the amount of permits that were being granted. Now,
Right.
I did see a lot of people jump in. They assumed that like permits were a 1-to-1 per person, but that's a tricky way to count it because technically one person could get multiple permits or whatever, right? So it's not necessarily a 1-to-1, but those numbers are crazy. So for instance, in 2024, the total temporary workers, or at least permits, whether between the IMP, the SP, and the TFWP, the different kind of programs we have going on, whether it's study permits, the International Mobility Program, or the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, that's 3.1 million. So you look at the problems that are also occurring from that when it comes to things like infrastructure, healthcare. As David Eby even pointed out too, he's like, how are we having temporary foreign workers here that are in homeless shelters? So it's like they're overwhelming even our social systems.
Oh, for sure.
So it's like,
I'm not advocating for the program. I don't think we should even have it. I think that there may be room for things that make sense seasonally. So what I mean is, if you needed, let's say you had a super heavy agricultural sector in your economy. Okay, cool. So if there are times when you need more people to work in the agricultural sector for 3 months out of the year that you can't adequately fill with people you have here, I don't have a problem with being like, hey, there's a cyclical nature to these. You can get people come in on permits. Same thing, I went down to the Cayman Islands and worked on a work permit. But this has got to be limited and cyclical, not this is permanent and it's concrete and it's ruining the system. And now it's a huge problem. I agree with you. So I don't advocate for the program whatsoever. I think we're in a mess. They put us in a pickle, and now no one wants to be the person to wear it, right? Because what I find happens in politics is this. You sort of have a lot of bad decisions that get made along the way that create this janky Band-Aid, jury-rigged situation that's put together, barely hanging on, and it's not good for anybody. So what they do is they try to continue blowing hot air into it as long as they can, so that they're not the ones left holding the bag when it bursts.
Right.
That's kind of like politics. That's just how the game works. And this is exactly one of those issues where it's gotten so bad, it's such a mess. They're subsidizing it with the tax dollars they're taking from the businesses, and there's all these people that's stressing infrastructure. I totally agree with all of what you're saying. However, whoever decides that they're going to cut this program is going to pop a very big balloon, and they're going to be wearing that. That's the issue. It's kind of a political suicide thing. And seeing how divided the parties are right now in Canada and how much they're trying to hang on to power, it's so interesting to watch how power hungry they've become. The Liberals specifically, I find more than anything, maybe because they've been in power for so long, but whatever. But this is one of those things that nobody wants to wear it. So they may just continue trying to sneak by.
Well, last thing I wanted to touch on before moving on here from the temporary foreign worker conversation is also, like, you know, even because they'll make this argument of, oh, it's necessary for our employment and all of this. And yeah, sure, you can probably make that argument, especially in certain sectors. I don't think you should be able to have temporary foreign workers for Tim Hortons.
I agree with you.
Ridiculous.
100% agreed.
That's not a industry that, if they're short on labor, all of a sudden everything starts falling apart.
Oh, same page. Yep. But it's great entry-level work for young kids. That'll interface with the community and honestly are a better cultural mix for the masses of Canadians.
Right. And even, you know, I saw somebody there was a post on Twitter that went pretty viral about, it was just a guy asking the questions, well, you know, what teens in Canada want to work the overnight shift at Tim Hortons or at KFC or any of these things, like making the argument that this is why we need temporary foreign workers. It's like, I worked that job. Like, I did overnight shifts at Tim Hortons when I was like 17, 18, something like that. And so, first of all, it's a terrible argument, but then, yeah, you go look at the people that are making the arguments, and, you know, conveniently, they happen to be people that are in immigration
consulting, private immigration, helping people with permits, helping businesses get temporary foreign workers. Oh, you're advocating for it. Yeah, got it.
Which was true in that case.
Predictable, he says.
But I also stumbled across this yesterday, which I thought was crazy, is that, and this was, it's on the Canadian government's website, and it's dated back a while, but I never realized they were doing this. They were giving vaccine exemptions for temporary foreign workers all throughout the COVID pandemic.
What?
Pablo from Mexico could come up here, work in the summers as a farmer, didn't have to get the vaccine, and also they were giving him exemptions for flights.
Nice.
All of that. Travel.
Damn straight.
Meanwhile, so they're making the argument that they had to do these, they had to make these exceptions because it was pivotal for the Canadian well-being and making sure that we had food and all of this kind of stuff. Sure, you could potentially make that argument. However, when you're firing people for not taking the vaccine, when you're getting rid of nurses, when you're getting rid of military members, all of this across the board in very critical sectors, you don't get to make that argument anymore.
100%.
So I think, like, to me, all of the arguments they use for the temporary foreign worker program, they fall apart under stress.
Most government decisions do. Most things you can rip apart. Most things are not straightforward. Most things are not what they seem with government. And when you see policy, it's usually for them to benefit in some other way, or there's something baked into the bill itself which gives them more power. This is the game we're playing. It's terrible.
All right. Well, let's dive into a little bit of a darker aspect of how that game is played. So Canada's stolen cars, fentanyl, and the terror economy. Canada has become a central node in a global narco-terror network where stolen vehicles, fentanyl trafficking, and organized crime intersect. Ottawa's own national risk assessments confirm that cars stolen in Canadian cities are shipped through ports like Montreal and resold abroad, with proceeds directly funding Hezbollah's international operations. This same group maintains ties with Latin American cartels, driving Canada's fentanyl epidemic, creating a pipeline of crime and addiction that devastates communities at home while empowering terrorists abroad. Profits flow through Canadian money laundering networks, exploiting the country's ports, charities, and financial systems. Investigative reporter Sam Cooper has shown that U.S. law enforcement repeatedly provided the RCMP with wiretaps, targets, and evidence meant to dismantle these networks, yet Canadian police declined to act, citing disclosure rules and legal constraints. The result? Gangs thrive, fentanyl spreads, and Canada remains a safe haven for laundering operations that link local crime to global terror. So what does this say about Canada's international reputation for law enforcement?
First of all, it says that Canada's law enforcement domestically is a huge disaster, which we already know. which I'm still confused at how this is allowed to happen. How, I wrote something yesterday just briefly. And look, I'm not advocating for this. I want to say that, to get ahead of something where a guy was thrown in jail for 10 years for hate speech. And, he was a quote unquote Nazi. I didn't dig too deep, but no one was hurt. But anyway, sure, he's spreading negative thoughts and bad speech. 10 years. Now, I'm not saying he deserves less. I don't actually care. That's not what I'm kind of commenting on here. But it's that this kind of stuff happens. It's like, okay, the police get on cable TV and they go, just leave your door open, give them the keys, whatever else they need, just let them have it. Just comply, bend over, just take it. So they can take your car. We know what's happening. We know now it's funding international terrorism. And they're like, yeah, there's just some legal constraints. Can't do anything about it. Except a guy that gets thrown in jail, a guy that gets charged with hate speech crime, fine, that's viable. I'm okay with that. But he gets 10 years. We have a very, very backward system here. So domestically, and what I would add, so we have a very broken system here. And what I would add to that is, just sort of a reminder that the number of gangs in Canada has doubled since 2021 to 4,000 gangs, and very likely about 150,000 gang members. That's organized crime. These are career criminals that know what they're doing, that have infiltrated every probably aspect or component of this country. But that really kind of brings me to my next point about the international reputation thing, right? So a lot of these gangs, I would probably say the significant majority are foreign operations. And so because of that, what that says is our international reputation is very clear. We're open for organized criminal business. That's what we do here. Come on in and do whatever you need to do. We have lax crime laws, catch and release, all these bills that will kind of let you come in and act with impunity. So internationally, if the organized criminals know this and they're here, then all of the authorities already know this as well. So this is not like whatever we're telling Canadians, whatever the media, whatever the propaganda here is telling Canadians is just complete nonsense, because on the global stage, if you have the organized criminals here at that scale getting away with it at this level, all of the authority figures, all of the authority groups, around the entire world already know what this country's become, an absolute mess.
Well, man, what really bothers me in terms of this conversation is thinking about just the average taxpayer in Canada. You're the average citizen in Canada. Think about how this web ends up affecting you. So let's say you're one of these people that your home gets invaded, your family goes through an experience that they'll never forget, your car gets stolen, so your property worth tens of thousands of dollars gets taken,
and now you have to pay more higher insurance rates.
You have to pay higher insurance rates. The money that is generated from your stolen vehicle funds terrorism. Your taxes are then sent overseas to fund the aid for the victims of these terrorist groups abroad,
which often just goes to terrorist organizations anyway.
Right. Then your taxes also go to your allies abroad that are fighting these terror groups that we're funding also. And then refugees displaced by violence of the conflicts between your allies and these terror groups abroad, you pay as the Canadian taxpayer to bring them here, house them, feed them, integrate them, all of that. And then also during this entire process, your tax-funded police are doing absolutely nothing to stop them terrorizing your neighborhoods.
When you put it like that, it sounds a lot worse.
It is.
Yeah.
I took that commentary and I even gave it to ChatGPT. I was like, is there flaws in this logic here? Like, or am I, as a Canadian taxpayer, actually getting screwed from like 10 different ways in this one process? And it was like, nope, your logic is solid.
Your logic is sound. You should leave that place, man. You should get out.
It's like, shit. Like, I was kind of hoping that they would be like, no, this is kind of how it actually goes.
Liam.
Yeah.
Wait till they get to control. It'll be interesting, actually, when governments, because I bet it will happen, governments eventually will start filtering LLM models. They'll have to. They gotta.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, because you can't ask ChatGPT that and get that answer. That's not acceptable.
Oh, yeah.
The answer is no, Liam. You're crazy. In fact, where do you live? I'll be there in like 15.
Yeah, that's like the. I think it was Axios. It could have been, but it was a major publication down in America.
Yeah.
Where did you see that instance that went very viral of the black man who stabbed the Ukrainian woman in the neck, and then was like chanting afterwards, "I got the white woman." And so like this Ukrainian refugee flees a war zone
psycho
across the world to come to here for safety and then get stabbed in the neck on public transit for absolutely no reason other than essentially a hate crime, but nobody cares about those kind of hate crimes. Anyways.
Yeah, that's wild, actually.
It's crazy.
That to me is insane. But it's weird because, like, I don't really think about these things very often, but I'm becoming more paranoid about everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not, like, I guess I know, like, I actually don't mind spending a minute on this because I actually think it's super dark that no major publications covered this. They didn't cover the real story. They didn't cover the story at all. Now it's starting to leak out on right-wing platforms, mainstream platforms, like it's on the National Post now. You know what I mean? But they decided they weren't going to cover it because it doesn't fit their narrative. But it's like, this dude shouldn't have even been on the streets. Commits a racially charged hate crime. No one says anything about it. Now, that's one thing, but just the fact, here's what it is. The guy's obviously a psychopath. The guy's obviously fucked in the head. No question. You don't do that to someone unless you're fucked in the head. But we have implemented policy, and it's worse in Canada, that allows people out onto the streets that will commit these heinous acts. So a lot of these crimes are from repeat criminals and people that are out on bail right now. That's where we're at. So the people that should be behind bars so that people can feel safer on transit, well, they're all out now. So now you kind of have to have your backup all the time, being like, what's going to happen? Who can I trust? And like, I'm a hypervigilant individual anyway. I kind of always case the rooms. I know where my exits are. I just do it naturally. I don't do it because I think it's cool. It's how I operate. So I'm always kind of paying attention anyway. But like, it just keeps increasing the level higher and higher because these things keep happening, and these governments just continue to let these people back out on the street. And the thing is, all you're doing is enabling them. You're giving them more. I mean, you're almost motivating them. You're almost baiting them to continue doing these things.
They are, because think about it. And this was the inevitable consequence of this. And this is why I started talking about this so long ago, was because I could see that this is where we would get to with it. When every institution, whether it's Hollywood, academia, your government, all of this is perpetuating this narrative that white people and their ancestors are uniquely evil, and everything in your life as a minority is a direct result because of their evilness. This is inevitable.
Right.
Of course.
You're mobilizing soldiers, essentially.
Yeah.
In a sense. I mean, yeah.
But anyways, Axios, yes. So I was right there when you were talking about none of the major media outlets talking about this. Well, Axios printed a article about it, and they tweeted the link to the article saying the Charlotte stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message. So they were trying to say, oh, this is the fact that people are worried about this is actually a bad thing. And then in their article, they wrote the big picture. The rising number of surveillance cameras in public spaces, including on Charlotte's light rail, has become a big accelerant in these cases. The video is easily shared or leaked and can instantly pollinate across social media, a visual counterpoint to statistics showing crime decreases. So they're saying the security cameras are actually the issue here in all of this, because
we can't maintain our narrative if you guys get the real truth in the videos.
And crime statistics are going down, but these videos make people worried about it. And it's like, yeah, a woman got randomly stabbed in the neck for a hateful, motivated crime. This is everything you talk about. But that is perfectly, and actually, it was a girl named Shoe on Head on Twitter. She's a commentator down in the States, but she applied the fantastic Orwell quote to this from 1984, where he says, "They told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. Their final command was the most essential." And it's like, that's it. Yeah, they said, no. Reality doesn't matter for you guys. Just we depict reality. And you even saw that even outside of America, right? Down in Hamilton just last week, they put can't remember if it was a bylaw or what, but anyways, they showed up at a guy's house who had a security camera on his front step and told him he had to take it down because it also records public property of the sidewalk.
Sure.
And so now in Canada, you're not allowed to have a security camera if it also records anything that could be considered a public space. And you go, why is this your focus right now? Why is this your resources? You guys want to build a surveillance state. You guys are building these camera speed tickets on every single road, all of this. But because he might capture something, you guys are all of a sudden concerned now about
That's
privacy in
that's
this?
crazy to me. Like, well, I had obviously been in the restaurant business for a long time. We always have cameras on the front doors. The number of times police would come in and be like, "Hey, can we get your footage?"
Yep.
Like, no less than a dozen times I've had cops come in, like, "Hey, can we grab this footage? Something happened. We're just trying to catch an angle of it." Yeah, no problem. Here you go. Now they're trying to nix all that.
Yeah,
that's insane to me.
Yeah, and it's I can't think of any other reason than them being like, yeah, we just want to essentially get rid of this evidence before it happens.
Well, the thing is, it may be a number of things. They may want to control the eyes themselves or whatever. But the reality is, it's something nefarious because it's not where you should be spending your resources. Ultimately.
Well, and even as you were talking earlier about the guy that just got sentenced for 10 years for promoting Nazi stuff in Canada, like, look, that's not my hill to die on. I'm not going to fight for that guy. That's not really a case. However, you look at the misapplication and these double standards where, you sent me a picture the other day of a poster in Toronto promoting communism. And you're like, the communists around the world killed far more than any fascists ever did by like almost 10 times.
Well, yeah, they used the picture of Luigi Mangione, the guy who killed the healthcare C-level guy, as like join the gang. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Well, and dude, it goes way back. When I was living in Toronto, I would see these posters all the time, and people wouldn't recognize it, but it's like, this is a communist propaganda poster, because it would be like, let's say it was a protest about workers' stuff that CUPE was organizing. I would look on the other organizations that are supporting this protest, and it would be things like the Bolshevik Party and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, the Bolsheviks were directly responsible for killing millions upon millions of people. And so these people can go around flyering communism propaganda, all of this. Yeah. Nobody would ever bat an eye at somebody wearing a hammer and a sickle.
No.
But then, the Nazi stuff, sure, like they go ahead and 10 years in prison.
Yes.
And then also, this is the aspect that bothers me is it's the whole prioritization thing we were talking about in regards to Canadian prisons. It's like, okay, if you don't have the prison space, then you have to prioritize who you're going to lock up.
Yes.
Well, it's definitely not the Freedom Convoy organizers. It's definitely not Nazi shit posters online. It's the people breaking into people's homes, holding them at gunpoint, killing fathers in front of their family.
Yes.
Abusing children under 5 in ways that you can't imagine.
Yeah. There's a much cheaper solution for people like that, actually.
Yeah, but it's like, that's not a priority. So, yeah, at this point, I'm sitting here and people will go, well, what do we do about it, Liam? I'm sitting, at this point, it's like, we got to recognize that we live in a world where
you have to defend
nobody's
yourself.
Coming to save you.
You have to defend yourself. And end of story. You have to defend yourself. That's just where we are.
These institutions hate you.
Yeah. And the thing is, again, I'm not advocating for proactive anything. I'm advocating for defending yourself, because the thing is, no one will do it for you. It's just getting worse. And yeah, you may pay a price, but I'd rather defend myself and pay that price than bend over and take it and see what that looks like
100%.
Getting killed in front of your family. It's wild.
And also, I'll say this as well. Hey, there's a lot of people that are even on board with that. Like, every time we post a video about this crime stuff, you see everybody just, which is good. It's the mentality to have. Like, hey, if you come into my house, like, I don't care what the laws are. That is the right mentality. However, I was also kind of saying this to some friends the other day. It's like, hey, it's great that you have this mindset, but like, what are you practically doing about it? Because I can tell you right now, like, I'm not scared of you.
Yes.
Like, this friend, these people that are talking this way to me in my real life, they're not fit. They're not working out. They don't have weapons. I'm like, in what world do you think that you're like, yeah, sure, it's the equivalent of the I see red, bro. Like, you don't want to be around me when I see red. I'm like,
yeah.
Look, when if the home invaders come, like,
time.
You should probably be ready. And it's like, that's not to say that I'm like actually training to be a UFC star here or anything, but it's like, I'm hitting a bag multiple times a week or training because it's like, I want to know that I'm not going to gas out in 10 seconds.
Yes.
Or that I've at least got like a little bit of the mechanics here and sharpness.
Huge difference. If you know how to throw a punch, you can KO someone pretty quick. If you don't, I remember watching this baseball player, good athlete, and this was like 2 years ago, and absolute stud baseball player, gets into a scrap on second base, no offense to women, throws a punch like a girl and gets KO'd right on the spot. I go, buddy, don't pick a fight if that's how you throw a punch.
Right.
Don't do that. Understand the mechanics of what you're doing so you can help yourself just a little. God, it was embarrassing.
Or even too, like, even, okay, let's say you are in a scenario where, okay, you've got a firearm, you're at home.
Not all women. Some women could kick the shit out of me. I just mean in general.
Sure. But then even too, okay, let's say you even have a rifle. So you've got a way to level the playing field. You don't have to rely on hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
That's great. If it's just sitting under your bed and you're not practice shooting once a week or any of this kind of stuff, and you're not being actually proactive in training for a moment like this, what makes you think that you're going to be able to, under pressure, all of a sudden pull all the stops together and be like, all right, now all of a sudden I'm going to be John Wick here overnight?
You know what's actually funny? So do you know who Randy Johnson is?
No.
So Randy Johnson, you're such a nerd. Randy Johnson was a MLB pitcher, one of the best all time, like strikeout records. They call him the unit. Okay. So he was like a 6'10" lefty that just threw gas, struck everybody out. He's notorious. He's well known actually for he hit like a pigeon or a bird, like was flying across the strike zone and exploded the bird.
I've seen that
video.
It
was crazy.
Yeah.
So he was there was something that happened the other day, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need a gun. I keep a box of baseballs beside my bed."
Yeah.
You come into this house, you're going to get a 99-mile-an-hour fastball off the beak, and I don't miss. Good luck. Like, yeah, that's actually pretty sweet, bro. Yeah, okay.
That sounds like something out of a Marvel movie where it's just like his just superpower is just baseball throwing.
Baseballs 100 miles an hour across the road. What the fuck was that? It's quite, it's
but
crazy.
Yeah, it's like, you gotta actually prepare for those moments, and I think we're reaching that point where people are gonna really start regretting if that's not the case. Also, too, actually, one thing I wonder about in regards to this topic is, like, you know, you look at these police officers and chiefs and stuff that are at the press conferences saying, okay, well, you know, just comply with the cops, or sorry, just comply with the criminals. Dude, every single one of them looks like the exact person I'm describing that could not hold their own.
Right.
They're 45-year-old, you know, career law enforcement, but they haven't hit the gym in 20 years.
Yeah.
And they've just been pushing paper. And I go, like, how much of that does that also signal to, say, these terror groups around? Like, if I was, let's just say I was an international criminal organization and I was picking countries I wanted to target that are soft and weak, and I look at one country and all of their law enforcement leadership is 45-year-old dudes that are
doing dances on the stage with trannies.
Yeah, that are balding and out of shape and look like they couldn't even run 500 meters.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's your target.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
If that's the person you place at the top of your law enforcement hierarchy.
Yeah, we need more people like the big unit, bro. Let's go. I actually advocate for ongoing physical testing for police officers, which is not something they do, but I think that would serve us a lot better. I remember when I was traveling in Europe in November, and I was in a few different countries. When I got to Germany, the dudes in Germany, I was like, oh yeah, you don't mess around here. Yeah, the guys, like everybody I saw in airport security there, it was my experience. I'm sure it's not like this everywhere, but like every dude was jacked and 6'4". I'm like, yep, no one here's fucking around. All right.
That's the way it should be.
Before we move on to the next topic, this episode is brought to you by the Tallow Truth. Would you ever eat your skincare? No? Then why put it on your skin, your body's biggest organ? Most skincare products are loaded with chemicals that absorb straight into your body. That hydrating cream might as well come with a hazard warning. Your skin needs real nourishment, not lab experiments. That's why I use F-Bomb from the Tallow Truth, made from grass-fed, grass-finished tallow. It's also hormone-free, antibiotic-free, steroid-free, GMO-free, and even vaccine-free. Nothing artificial, nothing toxic, just results. I've been using F-Bomb from the Tallow Truth for almost a year now, and honestly, I'm never going back. My skin feels hydrated, my fine lines are reducing, and I just look better. Plus, I'm already 40. This shit's not going to get any easier for me. But what makes the Tallow Truth even better is that they're a freedom-first brand that supports Blendr News and everything we stand for. They even offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you've got nothing to lose. So, go to thetallowtruth.com/blender and use code BLENDR, BLENDR, for 15% off. This includes 15% off already discounted bundles too, so you can save as much as 40%. That's thetallowtruth.com/blender, code BLENDR at checkout for 15% off.
All right, last story for the day. We've got feds identify nearly 500 ways to cut red tape, all of which they created. Ottawa's new red tape report, boasting nearly 500 initiatives to streamline services, underscores how badly Canada's bureaucracy has strangled business and growth. Ministers were ordered to suggest cuts within 60 days, highlighting the sheer complexity of federal regulations. Treasury Board President Shafqat Ali touted quicker drug approvals, shorter pipeline assessments, and improved trade facilitation as progress. Yet critics argue these are band-aid fixes on a broken system. The Impact Assessment Act, dubbed the No More Pipelines Act, along with measures like BC's tanker ban, continue to delay projects and fuel uncertainty. While approval timelines for small projects have been reduced from 191 to 79 days, the shift comes from minor tweaks, not real reform. Provinces and Conservatives say Ottawa is papering over systemic failures. Danielle Smith calls it national economic self-sabotage, while Pierre Poilievre insists scrapping anti-energy laws is the only way to unlock growth. This report signals recognition of the problem, but not true reform. So are provinces right to call this economic self-sabotage?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could call it economic self-sabotage, yes. I think the thing is, our entire system is a bureaucratic ball of nonsense. I think that's what this is. Like, as the headline reads, all of which they created. The problem we have with government is the bigger it gets, the more involved it is in everything. And the only way that it's able to feed itself is if it justifies its own existence. And that's why they continually create problems and give us the solutions, many of which would have never happened in the first place. And many of their solutions aren't real solutions anyway. They're just ways to continue maintaining their budgets and continue spending your money and continue being corrupt. That's the reality here. And what happens is when you continue doing that over time, you get to this break point where society will no longer accept it because you're becoming society's biggest burden, which our government has become and has been for many, many years now. So when you look at that, you kind of go, well, we have to dial this back again so we can inflate it again. It's kind of like Chrétien, when he was in the 90s, even though he was a liberal, he cut the size of government significantly. He's like, oh, we've gone too far here. We still want to have fun and play. And everybody at the top, they get to keep their jobs and continue getting all the money that they want and doing what they want to do with our tax dollars. But you kind of cut out a lot of other people. They just end up becoming, dead weight, I guess. And then you reduce it and then you can go back to the same game again. So if you look at what happened in the 90s, then they expanded. But then now we're back to the same place again. And if you look at what Trudeau did over the 10 years he was in office, you just have to look at a few things. The growth of the federal sector by 41 to 43%. The increase in federal spending, our annual budget went up nearly 100%. I think it was 85 to over $500 billion a year. So you look at things like that and you realize that all you're actually getting, because life didn't get any better for anybody. I think that's very clear. Healthcare got worse, housing got worse, cost of living got worse, everything got worse. Our GDP per capita went down significantly, even though GDP went up because it was just charged by immigration. So everything was a disaster. But that was like they were like making hay while the sun shined. Everybody was doing well, spending all the tax dollars, but it's got to this point again where it's like, ooh, we got to tighten it up. We have to reduce this. Now, we don't actually want to change things because it's cyclical. We want to go back to the same game again. I want to have your tax dollars. I want to be corrupt and I want to be able to do whatever I want, like criminals get away with all this other nonsense, just to get back to our other conversation. And then I just kind of start all over again. And it's a new chapter of, hey, we fixed everything, but we didn't really do much and we're going to continue bending everybody over. That's exactly what this is. So they are right to call it economic self-sabotage, but I think it's actually something bigger. I think it's something worse. And I'm not entirely sure, even the Conservative Party like Pierre Poilievre can say that they're also not a part of it.
Well, and yeah, the problem runs so deep because this is a great book that I think anybody wanting to dive deep into the economic situation, especially now, it touches on this being a problem across the Western world, this red tape and, death by bureaucracy, essentially. But it uses Canada as a case study a lot. But in this section, he writes, Joe Carson writes, based on the number of rules in Saskatchewan and those publicly acknowledged by the government of Manitoba, it is estimated Canadians must comply with over 12 million rules. So that is a massive issue in and of itself. We have, 40 million people, but 12 million rules?
It's a lot of rules.
That's a lot of rules. But he goes on to say, there is a simple and devastating truth attached to each rule administered by a government. For every rule that must be complied with, a person or business will pay twice. The first payment is the time, effort, and cost, such as paying an accountant to do your taxes, needed to comply with the rule. This is time and money that cannot be used to generate income, to learn, or to enjoy life. The second is the payment of taxes, fees, and charges levied by all levels of government on people and businesses to implement and administer the rules the people must comply with. If a person's goal is to maintain or improve their existing quality of life, mandatory compliance with government rules and the associated requirement to pay more and higher taxes, fees, and charges to government means a person must change by working longer, working harder, working differently, or moving somewhere where taxes are lower. But that's exactly it. It's like you get hit on both ends, because every single one of these rules means, yes, more taxes or fees, or got to pay for a permit or whatever. And then on the opposite end of that as well, then you're losing the time and effort it takes to even just figure out what these rules are and comply with them. And so it's like, yeah, like how could you possibly be productive in this country?
This is the problem you have, right? If they've made it so complicated, so convoluted, that in a way you have to give them so much money that you want to depend on them for all the money you're giving them, but they make it so complicated that you have to depend on them to tell you what you can do. And then when you don't, because you can't figure all these things out because there are 12 million rules, they come and penalize you anyway, so you have to give them more money. You're like, why am I playing this game? Why am I a part of this system? This is such a disaster. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be simplified. Like, for better or worse, Florida is, in my opinion, doing a lot of things that are appealing right now. They're getting rid of a lot of stuff. Property tax, mandatory vaccination, you name it. They're letting you kind of like, hey man, hands off, do your own thing. Don't get me wrong, there's probably still 2 million rules there, but at least it's moving in the right direction. It's that thing of like, hey, there's no utopia, but you have to pick your problems. I'm getting fed up with these problems pretty quickly, to be honest with you, and I don't see them doing anything to correct course. I think really what it is back to what I was saying a moment ago. It's cyclical. So they're not actually doing anything. It's not real reform. Like you said in the synopsis here, they convince you that it is, but if you pay attention to history at all and look at what has been going on, you go, oh, you're just going to do this all over again. And you're just going to rinse and repeat. So even though you might make it easier for me for a few years, you're going to come at me again. But the problem is you dug yourself into such a huge amount of debt recently that you're going to keep your boot on my neck for a decade right now while you start dialing back some of the bureaucracy. That's all this is. So, you could almost say, well, if times are good and they they take their foot off the gas on the bureaucracy, maybe I can get ahead for a few years and then change my position. That's not what's happening here. We're in a terrible economic position, and they're pretending to take their foot off the gas with the bureaucracy stuff. But the thing is, they're going to just cycle it back up again. And what I'm getting at is there's no room. You're not going to be able to go up for air. I don't see it here. I don't see it here right now. It's going to be very, very challenging. I'm sure there are industries and sectors and outliers and ways to succeed in this country. I don't think it's completely doomed for everybody. It's not what I think. I just think at scale, macro perspective, I don't see it.
Yeah. Like even a case study that I know of personally with a friend that owns a business, and the business does well, and they're expanding. They're wanting to actually build on to the business itself so that they can have more warehousing space and also more space for their mechanics. And through that process, when they were going to get the permits in order to build this extension on their business, first of all, the process took forever, months and months and months and months. But then also through this, there's all these other aspects with, and this was the big one, was that the municipality, and obviously this is a multi-layered issue, as municipalities, provinces, and federal as well. But they came back and they said, okay, you can build this extension on your business, but you also have to do all of these other things as well. One of them being they had to update their septic to be up to the modern codes. But
sure,
these were fine by the codes 20 years ago.
Yes.
What has majorly changed? That change that they're saying, if you want to do this thing, you also have to do this.
Yeah, it's like $50,000-$60,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
And so
it's
you're
such a mess.
And so think about that for now. Again, this business does well, so they're able to do that. They're going ahead with it, and they said, fine, we'll do that construction as well. But let's say you're a business where you're looking at it and you're getting by, but you're not crushing it. and you go, okay, I want to expand this so that I can have more capacity.
This will make sense with economy of scales. Yeah,
there I'll be able to actually
economies of scale.
Take more money in for the business. But let's say they don't have that 50, 60K for the additional project laying around.
Well, now it's higher risk too if you have to borrow it.
Now they can't actually expand the business that they need. So then they're stuck there. They're stuck.
This is basically it. Like you want to sneak peek into the level of bureaucracy in this country and bullshit. You think about it. Think about this: the time it takes to take a property from dirt to a completed building, it's 3.5 times longer than it is for the permitting process and to get everything done than it is in the United States and the UK as it is in Canada. Except our buildings are no more safer. 3.5 times. That's the nonsense, and that's just in that space. And this is when they're like, "You have a housing shortage. Maybe you guys should get out of the way." Maybe you should get out of the way.
That was Ayn Rand's warning, right? And she was a free market Puritan, but she said at one point, said when you're, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but she said when your society is dependent on competent people having to seek approval from people that add no benefit to society, your society is doomed.
Yeah,
you go, yeah,
nailed it.
When me as a competent person has to get okayed by incompetence, like it's done.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add today?
Nope. Sorry. Actually, our energy was good today. It's just like, yeah, sorry, man. Shit's on fire. But no, I'm good.
All right. Before we get out of here, don't forget to head over to our Substack where you can sign up for our newsletter, which goes out 5 days a week. That's blendrnews.com, BLENDR news.com. It's completely free, and you can also find the sources that we discuss in this show. And if you would like, you can also sign up for a paid subscription, which does help support us. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.